Hello everyone, my name is Michelle Williams, aka Coach Michele, and I am excited to be here. This question has been submitted literally 7 times within the last 30 days, so you know I have to address it. But before I begin talking about an assessment and what does assessment look like, I want to welcome you. If this is your first time here, welcome, welcome, welcome. And for those of you that are returning, you already know how I feel about you. Mwah! So guys, get your pen and paper ready. We are going to discuss what is a comprehensive assessment. Of course, many of you are joining this home care industry for the first time. Many of you are brand new to entrepreneurship. Many of you are not nurses because you do not need to be or have to be a registered nurse or a nurse practitioner to get into this business. However, there are some confusions around who can do what can this person do, what can that person do. So today I'm going to talk to you about a comprehensive assessment and what does it entail. And I will begin by saying a registered nurse must do your comprehensive head-to-toe assessment. Period, point blank. Many of you have asked, can a licensed practical nurse do it? Based on the guidelines in all of the states that I am familiar with, based on the rules and regulations, if you're in a regulated state, the answer is no. A comprehensive head-to-toe assessment must be done by a registered nurse. Now, there's other things, depending on the state that you're in, like a supervisory visit in the state of Georgia, can be done by a licensed practical nurse. However, it has to be signed off on by a registered nurse. Another video, but just want to answer that question because I've seen that quite often as well. A comprehensive head-to-toe assessment is when your registered nurse is going out to assess the client. Now, I don't recommend having a registered nurse and the owner or administrator go out simultaneously. It's just too much. The nurse is sitting there with nothing to do. The administrator is sitting there when the nurse is doing what he or she is doing. And it's very overwhelming for the client because it's a very long visit. Now, if you are a registered nurse, then yes, if you're a registered nurse and you're going out for that initial visit because you also are the administrator, then absolutely you can do both depending on your skill set as far as how fast you are in gathering the information and things like that. But you can do it simultaneously if you are a registered nurse. However, as a non-registered nurse, you are going out for that initial visit. I don't recommend sending the nurse because you have not solidified the agreement, the client, right? So now you're sending your nurse, hypothetically, you could be sending your nurse out to do an assessment when the nurse may not be well equipped on your policies and procedures and your intake papers. So now the nurse is kind of frustrated, may not know what to do, may not be the best representation of your business as far as that first impression. So I recommend someone from your office, the administrator, supervisor, whomever is trained in that position to go out and meet with the client. So you've met with the client or potential client. Now the client has signed all of your intake documents and has officially became a client. Congratulations! Now it's time to schedule an appointment. So you can schedule if you know your nurse's availability. Go ahead and schedule while you're there. If not, you can let the client know that your nurse will be following up with him or her within 24 hours or the same day, however you want to do it. If you're like me, when I used to go out, I would literally either find out the availability before I get there, or I would text my office or nurse while I'm there when the client is filling out the paperwork or the client's family is filling out the paperwork. I'm literally multitasking to get that done. And then that way I can say, oh, the nurse is available later today at 4. Does that work for you? Or tomorrow or whatever, right? Because we want to get that intake completed as soon as possible. A lot of times in my video, I say number 1, number 2, number 3, and then I get off track because I share so much information. And guys, make sure you take a moment to turn on your notifications, click that bell to like this video, and definitely subscribe. So the first thing I would say, schedule the call. So that's the very first thing, schedule the call. Second thing is make sure you give your nurse all of the paperwork that he or she will need, your nurse will need to complete the assessment successfully, right? So if any paperwork that the state requires or any paperwork that you have prepared and you need those documents, those forms inside of your client's folder, you want to make sure you create that nurse packet, new client packet, okay? Now, if you forgot something when you were there, say you didn't get the emergency contact form, then you want to add that and give it to your nurse so your nurse can get that document filled. That's the number one way on staying compliant. Make sure you get everything you need up front. Same way with caregivers. When you're hiring caregivers, make sure you get everything up front so you can stay compliant. I would say the next thing, I guess this would be number 3. See, I can't keep up. Number 3 is actually do what? Visit the home. So the nurse is going to go there, which is going to take me right into number 4, which would be the introduction. This is when your nurse is building rapport, continuing. Many times I talk about passing that baton. This is when you have passed the baton to your nurse and your nurse is going out to the home. That number 4 is really important when the nurse walks in. Actually, from the very beginning, when the door is open, your nurse is going to introduce herself. You may want to, share how you want that introduction done. You may want to talk to, so this could be like a 4A. Well, no, it really should be in the beginning. You want to talk to your nurse about what you want the nurse to wear, right? So the nurse may not wear scrubs. The nurse may wear clothes and a jacket, right? Meaning like a lab jacket, lab coat, right? Or the nurse may wear a uniform, or the nurse may not and just have your ID. So you want to determine that up front during the onboarding process, before the onboarding process, right? So then I would say number 5 would be after the introduction. So now you're getting right into the assessment. What is an assessment? So some of the things you want to include in assessment, I'm going to start this with number 1, because now we're talking about the actual assessment. The first thing, and this is not in any particular order, I would say health. Right? So you want to do a health assessment, or your nurse is doing a health assessment to find out like the medical history of this person. Then number 2, we're going to say physical assessment. So like looking at the client, checking the skin. Are there any skin, tears, any skin breakdown? Mobility, is the client able to get around on his or her own? Do they have any type of device assisting them with walking, like a cane and, a walker and things like that? And then also like just that visual to put her eyes or his eyes on the client, right? So I would say that would be the physical. Third one would be functional, right? So your functional assessment, which is a part of your comprehensive assessment, you're going to think about functional, like, what can this person do? Can this person perform their activities of daily living on their own? Do they need assistance with those activities of daily living? And then we're going to jump into number 4. Keep me straight, guys. We're going to jump into number 4, which would be cognitive. Cognitive is very important, especially when we're, dealing with seniors. And many of you focus on seniors exclusively. That cognitive assessment, memory, their orientation, that's going to be very important. Then I would say the 5th one would be medication, right? So the nurse is going to, look at the medication list or the actual medication bottles to know what medications. This is so important, guys, because depending on the client, if there is some memory loss, they may not share everything. Depending on the person that's there with the person, they may not know everything. So it's good to get the medication list, for your nurse to get the medication list, because then the nurse can look at it and say, okay, what is this for? Do you have high blood pressure? Because the person may not have mentioned that during the medication part of it, right? So it's really, really important. So that's going to actually move me into the next one. I'm going to say medication. It's really important to get that medication because it's going to help with everything else. It's going to help with everything else, right? So we're going to say number 6 is medication. And then we're going to say number 7 is nutrition. We want to make sure that, what type of diet this person is on. What are their eating habits? So the dietary part of it is really, really important. Any habits they have, it may be, they may be doing things that they really shouldn't do based on their condition or based on medications that they have and things like that. So really, really important. And number 8, I'm going to say social, right? Like their social support. Meaning, who are their friends and family? Like, who do they have to lean on? Who is within their circle of influence? So what does that look like? That's important as well. All of these things are extremely important when we're talking about a head-to-toe assessment, a comprehensive assessment, really important. And then from those 8 things, I think I did it! Those 8 things, then the nurse is going to move to the next level, which would be create a service plan or care plan, depending on where you are in the country, a service plan or a care plan based on all of those things that I just mentioned that he or she will assess. They're going to create a care plan. Now, that care plan is going to be developed so the caregiver knows exactly what to do when the caregiver is in the home. The client can help you with this as well. So you want to involve, your nurse will want to involve the client, asking questions, probing and things like that, and sharing it as well, right? Because we want everyone to be on the same page. So when the caregiver comes to the home, the client already knows these are the things that the caregiver is going to help me with. The family knows these are the things that the caregiver will help me with. So we want to make sure everyone is on the same page. So now that care plan has been created, and then we move to the next phase, which would be putting a copy, reading it. The administrator is going to read it. The administrator or the staffing coordinator will disseminate this information to the caregiver to make sure the caregiver is orientated on what to do, how to do it, and things like that. And then we need to put a copy in the client's folder that stays in the house. And we will put the original inside of the client's folder that's in the office. Super, super important. Now, I'm going to jump back to the beginning of the video and share this before I end. And please comment below, guys, if you have any questions, comments, concerns, or what you need assistance with. And maybe I can pick your question to do my next video on a future video. The registered nurse can do these things. Now, the LPN can do the supervisory visit depending on the state. So that's the part here where you can say, okay, my LPN can, or LVN can follow up. Now the nurse has done everything that needs to be done from an RN perspective, and he or she is still going to monitor and manage this client. However, now the LPN can do some things, supervisory visits, follow-up, caregiver check-ins, and things like that, depending on what you have your nurse, your LPN do. And a lot of people want to hire an LPN to do some things because you're going to save money, right? However, in most states, if your LPN is doing these things like a supervisory visit, if you're in a regulated state, and of course, depending on your rules and regulations, the nurse still has to sign off on it. Now, based on my experience, none of my registered nurses wanted to sign off on the LPN because they wanted to manage the care all the way through. Because again, as a nurse, you always have to think about your license is on the line. So a lot of times they don't want to do that. And I don't think that's a bad thing because an LPN has so much knowledge, skills, talents, and there's plenty that an LPN can do in your organization. So you don't necessarily have to mix the task, just depending on how you're set up. And of course, if you're offering skill services, there's plenty for the LPN to do from that perspective as well. So hope you found value in this video. Make sure you turn on the notifications, subscribe, and I will see you on the next video. If you need assistance with starting and or growing your business, I am your girl. Go to my website, homecarecoaching.com, and go to services, and then you will see the different options that we have available to help you. And don't forget about conference. Guys, we are in the last stretch of conference. So you want to get your conference ticket and come out and meet me, meet Coach and my team, and so many like-minded individuals. Hundreds and hundreds of people will be there from all over the country and outside. Many international clients come. You definitely need to be in the building. So again, you could go to homecarecoaching.com, go to the menu, click on events, and get your ticket. And right now we have a special where it's only $444 plus the fee from TicketBud, just like Ticketmaster, etc., just like Eventbrite. So you guys take care. God bless. Mwah! And have an amazing, prosperous day.